Calm Your Crazy. I'm Kiana Lambert, and today we are going to be talking about negative self-talk. I struggle with negative self-talk. It is a hallmark of child abuse. When you grow up in an abusive home, or even if you grow up in a home where there's neglect, if you grow up in a home where you have a parent that's too critical, if you grow up in a home where you were spanked, if you grow up in a home where you weren't loved, if you grow up in a home where you weren't seen, all of that creates this negative self-talk in your mind. And the reason it creates the negative self-talk in your mind is because you do not have a sense of self. You were forming that when you're little. And what forms in the absence of love is fear. And that affects your nervous system, and it affects your brain. And so you walk through life in a constant state of anxiety or agitation or hyperarousal. And you start looking for things to alleviate the pain. Now, I don't endorse doing street drugs or anything like that, but in my life, I've seen people turn to substances, and I've seen them turn to anything that can help alleviate the pain. Spirituality, alcohol, street drugs, anything to help alleviate the uncomfortableness inside. I've started this journey of making this podcast and doing the website, and it has been one of the most challenging aspects of my life. Healing has been the hands down hardest thing I have ever done. And it is because I never processed the trauma. And I never processed what happened to me as a kid. I was put on numbing drugs fairly early in my life. I tried all the SSRIs, SNRIs, all of it. And all it did was numb me and my body from feeling and from processing. And there were so many times in my life that I just didn't want to live. And it wasn't because I didn't have something to live for. It was that I couldn't feel. And I felt hopeless because everything I did didn't make me feel better. I went to school. I taught myself school. When I was growing up, I taught myself school. I failed out of college so much because I didn't have any idea what I was doing, and my nervous system was constantly on high alert because I grew up in danger. And so no matter what I did, I never felt better about myself. And so I felt that hopelessness. And I've discovered that it is the negative self-talk and the negative thoughts that continue to pump the cortisol throughout my body and continues to keep me back from doing the things that I want to do. And the reason that negative self-talk keeps you back from doing the things that you want to do is not only do you have what they call the imposter syndrome, but you also have that cortisol that's making you feel unsafe in that moment when you're trying to take steps forward to doing things that you want to do. And the negative self-talk comes in every time I make a mistake or every time I don't do something. I was always the chameleon. I was always changing to fit in. I was always performing because that's what I needed to do to fit in with my family, to fit in with my narcissistic mother. And my sense of self and my identity was wrapped up in all these performative works and things. And when I had my NDE, I lost all sense of myself. I lost all sense of my old self. I was always really good at connecting patterns and seeing the way that psychology worked, but I never applied it to myself until I had the NDE, until I had the spiritual awakening and saw that my entire life I'd been wearing masks to perform, wearing masks to feel good about myself. And over time, and in all the research that I've done and all the therapy I've been to and watching and reading, it is so obvious to me that all people want to feel is good about themselves, is to love themselves and feel that connection within them. And when you come from trauma, or you come from a home where you have anxiety, I mean, let's be real here. It doesn't matter if you have had little t trauma, big T trauma. If you suffer from some type of anxiety, I bet you 100% it comes from negative self-talk and not feeling good enough about yourself because what happened to you somewhere along the line. And some people go through big failures and they beat themselves up with shame and guilt, and that causes a neural pathway to form that causes more guilt and more shame. And it keeps you from growing. It keeps you from connection. And so not only do we want to feel good about ourselves, I think that's the basic foundation, is the self-love and feeling good about yourself. But you also want to feel connection with other people. You want to be seen. And when you're little and you're not seen, that takes away your sense of self. So when you get older, that's why we have so many people that want to be performers, and they want to do all the things, and it's just so that they can be seen, and that's okay. I used to think it wasn't okay, like, oh my God, I have this perfectionist in me that just wants everything to be done right, it needs to be done perfect, and it's from fear. Because if you don't have fear, you don't care about what you do. You don't care if it's not perfect. You understand that people are human and that mistakes happen and that you're human. But if you're constantly trying to be perfect, it's because you have that negative self-talk built in and you're lacking in secureness within yourself. And I still struggle with it all the time. In fact, I face it every single time I have to do a social media post. I face it every single time I have to do the podcast. And I've done so many businesses that I failed at. And I'm going to say something about failure. You know, it's all about mindset and how you frame things. And I said something about failure, and somebody posted that they don't use that word because they're learning and growing. Yes, and that's true. You are learning and growing, and that's a good mindset. But denying myself and denying my mind that I frame it that way is more of me denying who I am. So I called it a failure because it wasn't a success. And to me, I'm very a concrete thinker sometimes, and so success for me is the opposite of failure. And because I didn't have success, I call that business venture a failure. And I did so many of them, and I failed at every one, and every single one compiled. And because I was on medication, I couldn't feel the results in my body, and I couldn't metabolize it. And so it continued to hurt me, and it continued to reinforce the negative self-talk. Because the looping comes from not feeling it. The looping in your body comes, and in your thoughts and your racing mind, it comes from you not feeling what happens. Resilience is your nervous system realizing that you're not in danger after something bad happens. Resilience comes from living through it. But when you're on the medication and it just covers all your feelings up, you are not able to feel it. You're not able to metabolize it. And some people numb themselves, and it doesn't even take medication. They completely disassociate from their bodies, and they can't feel their bodies at all. My former best friend, I would put a TENS unit on her and crank it all the way up because she was having physical pain in her body, and she couldn't feel the TENS unit. I mean, the sensation of the electricity should have been so strong that it contracted her muscle for her, and she couldn't feel it because of the dissociation from all the trauma that she's experienced in her life. So in my healing journey and getting off medication was excruciating. It still is excruciating some days when I don't have control of my thoughts. But I had to do it because I had to feel my body, and I had to feel what was stored in there. I had to connect the memories to the feelings in my body, and I had to metabolize the cortisol. I had to know that I was still safe. And the negative self-talk diminishes the more that you show your body you're safe. And the reason it diminishes is because your body feels stronger for having gone through it. And it doesn't go away. It hasn't gone away for me, but it goes away the more and more I take action towards the things that I want. But it's the double-edged sword, because when you go take action for things that you want, you're automatically going to get the triggers that come up, and that can throw you into more dysregulation. And that's where I start using the breath work and the tapping and the tools that I've used or that I talk about, and that the tools that I've learned to help me through those times of dysregulation. And your brain, when you're in fight or flight or dysregulation, automatically starts looking for the danger, and it starts creating scenarios so that you can meet those scenarios head on and feel prepared for them because you're scared. But that doesn't help you, and it doesn't serve you, and it creates more negative self-talk, because that's what the negative self-talk is. It's the scenario. You're beating yourself up. You're producing the negative self-talk so that you can deal with it and confront it. And then if something bad happens, you can be like, okay, yeah, I was already prepared. But the negative self-talk and the negative thoughts about yourself cause more chemistry in your body, and they cause more dysregulation. So even though you feel like you're prepared, you're constantly agitated. You're in that constant state of anxiety because you don't feel safe within yourself. So the negative self-talk comes from a lot of different places for a lot of different reasons. But the important thing is to feel in your body when you don't feel safe, and to breathe and use the tools of self-regulation, and then tell yourself you're okay. The mind is a muscle, and it has neural pathways. So the negative self-talk has been going on your entire life, because that is the identity that you formed when you were a child. And it keeps coming up every time you're dysregulated, or every time you're having anxiety, or every time that you step out of your comfort zone. And I try to reframe it for me as a spiritual person, that this is just my chemistry, it's just biology. These are just my body, they're my thoughts. And that's not who I am. I'm experiencing this. And then I validate myself and self-soothe. And it doesn't work every day, and it doesn't always feel good, but you keep doing it, and over time, you start to feel better and stronger. When you process the emotions of your past and your feelings, and when you validate yourself by saying, that shouldn't have happened, or yes, we failed, but we learned from it, you're self-soothing yourself in a way that your parent would or should have when you were little, and forgiving them for what they did, and knowing that they did what they did because of their nervous system and their generational trauma helps me and may help you. It didn't help at first. Like in the beginning, I really was so angry. Whenever I started the healing journey and all the feelings and emotions came up, I was facing like every failure that I had, that I missed, and all the struggles that I had. And I was angry because I knew that the reason, after therapy and everything that I had gone through, I knew that the reason that I had failed at those things was because, not because I didn't do the work, but because I picked people in my business ventures that were not healed either. And they were unable to force themselves to do the work because of their nervous systems. And it made the business fail. So I kept choosing broken people because I was broken. And then I kept trying to do things from the outside in, trying to make myself feel better. And it didn't work. Because you have to believe in yourself and you have to love yourself over the humps. And it means you live with it every day and you listen and you feel. And the more that you do it, the easier it gets. And it's not always pretty. And I do still also struggle with wanting to make things perfect. And nothing is perfect. And nothing will ever be perfect except in the way that everything unfolds is perfection for you. Meaning that you're going to attract the life you want by going through the storms to get to the other side. So if you're struggling with not feeling good enough, if you're struggling with the imposter syndrome, and if you're struggling with burnout or fear of any kind or anxiety, understand that it's coming from a deep place. Something happened in your childhood. Things compounded when you were an adult. And it dysregulated your body. It went unprocessed. It wasn't safe. And you can heal that by taking the steps, by continuing to move forward and continuing to revalidate yourself. And use the tools, the breathing, the tapping when you're dysregulated or you feel that anxiety, and talk to yourself. Because once you know where it's coming from, you know that's a neural pathway that can be repaved. And not every day is going to be easy. The way that healing works and the way that your nervous system works is you contract and expand, like breathing. And you want to do it in a way that doesn't hurt you anymore. So you want to be easy with yourself when you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You want to be easy with yourself when you're doing the self-love talk. A lot of people don't feel safe hearing positive things about themselves. I know I didn't. I didn't even celebrate my graduation for my bachelor's degree or master's because I did not feel worthy enough to celebrate myself. And what that did was showed my kids that they weren't worth celebrating. Life was always about survival. It was about drama and trauma and toxic family systems. And so I taught my kids that. And that's generational trauma that I passed on to them unwittingly. And now I'm showing them the painful side of healing, and I'm showing them how you take steps to move forward, and it's showing them resilience, and it's showing them that you can change, And it's showing them that you can love yourself and that you can deal with anxiety and you can start loving yourself. And that is the base of the foundation of this triangle of life is self-love. And you can spiritually bypass and you can do all the things and it doesn't help. Trust me, I've done them. It does help to know that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, or I'm consciousness, or I'm God having a human experience, and that it doesn't really matter. That stuff really does help when I'm dealing with something that I need to deal with. But when it comes to the root of things, I don't want to spiritually bypass. I don't want a temporary fix, which bypassing is just a temporary fix. I know because I've been there. It all comes back. You can do all the spirituality, you can get the grades, you can get the degrees, you can get the jobs, you can get the cars, you can get the houses. It all comes back. If you do not work with the root and start practicing the positive self-talk, the positive self-love, and it's very achievable. It's doable. It can be done. And it may not feel comfortable and it may not feel great. And we are, as a society, we're always looking for the quick fix. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. We take a pill for everything. But the only way through is to feel. And is to reparent yourself and to positive self-talk yourself. And do all the things that rewire your brain. And start recognizing what your brain is talking to you about and what it's telling you. And feeling areas in your body. And if you need to, grieve, cry, and then get up and keep going. If you keep going and push yourself too far, you can risk burnout. So you want to be easy with yourself. Easy with your exercise, easy with the way you speak to yourself, easy with what you eat, and take it slow. I have gone through burnout several times, and I didn't realize it was burnout because of the effexor that I was on, but it was nervous system burnout. I would do all this stuff for the businesses, work 90 hours a week, and I would burn out every time. And then I would beat myself up. And then it would be that much harder to get up in the morning. It would be that much harder to get through the day because I was constantly in that state. So I've had to force myself to slow down, to sit with it, to sit with myself, and it is incredibly difficult. My mind just wants to distract itself. It wants to watch things. It wants to do things. And I have to force myself to sit with me and to sit with the thoughts. And to show up and be present in every moment. Because mindfulness is one of the best ways to stay in the moment and to keep your nervous system regulated. Because your brain will start looking for all the things that are going wrong. And then that will send cortisol into your body, which will make you feel like you're in fight or flight, and adrenaline, and then it loops back to your brain. So staying in the moment and reminding yourself that everything is okay and focus on what you're doing and being in the moment starts to tell your nervous system that it is okay to be present with yourself. And I'm telling you, the moments of expansion that I felt, the moments of joy come in more regularly now, and they stay longer. Because it's my body finally letting myself feel good. And it's what I've wanted to feel my whole life. So if you're coming from a place where you don't feel good every day, it's your nervous system. And the steps that you need to do are mindfulness, self-love, and body regulation. And underneath those, there are tons of tools and tons of ways for you to do those things. You need to just look them up or look on my website, follow me on social media, and I talk about all of it. Because what I am experiencing and what I'm walking through is what I see happening in the world and so many people living with it. And I want to make change, not just for me, but for everyone, because I am everyone. We're all one. And if I change me and I share what I've learned, then more people can feel better and start living their authentic lives. Like I honestly feel like this is the reason why movies are just repeated. They just keep recreating the same movies because there's no imagination anymore. In order to have imagination, you have to feel safe. In order to feel joy, you have to be safe. And our societies are so capitalistic and we're so into the rush that I feel like everybody is in a constant state of dysregulation. And that inhibits imagination. And when you're only focused about money and you're only focused about statistics and everything else, then all you have to go on if you're in the movie industry is something that's already been done. There's a big pattern display of lack of imagination in Hollywood, and I could go on about what I see in patterns for the rest of the world, but it's a really telltale sign when people can't feel because they're dysregulated. Writers can't write. I mean, it's all like pushing through instead of just letting it flow. And life is about flow. Life is about abundance. It's about letting it come to you because we're all on a frequency that has abundance built in, happiness built in, because we are on this huge frequency of love. And what happens is the dysregulation, the trauma, the anxiety all comes in and it covers it up instead of letting it be free. So when you start working on this and you start working on yourself, it opens you up and you can start feeling it. And I hope that this helps. I hope that it helps you have hope and faith that things do get better. Because most of the time, it isn't that you don't want to live, it's that you don't want to live the way things have been going. When you're in a constant state of fight or flight, freeze, fawn, that's not living, that's surviving. And you want to thrive. And that's what you need to do, is thrive. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you next week.